But even more as we look at the cliffs across the way, think about the demoniac, and that is in Mark 5, where the demoniac, it's in the middle of the night. So I think we got to appreciate what this is like. Through the middle of the night, suddenly Jesus gets into the boat, and we go back to chapter 4 to read this. Let me read it to you. On that day when evening had come, he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side." So they're going to be doing this journey opposite of us. And leaving the crowd, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was. And other boats were with him. And a great windstorm arose. And it would have swept right through this kind of vortex that we're looking at right here. And a great windstorm arose, and waves were breaking into the boat, so that the boat was already filling. But he was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we're perishing?" And he awoke, stood, rebuked the wind, and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. He said to them, "Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith?" And they were filled with great fear, and said to one another, "Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?" And I don't think they appreciated perhaps the spiritual warfare that was going on even in their midst at that moment. At the end of it, they realized they had that kind of fear of the numinous that C.S. Lewis talks about, the fear of the spiritual realm. He says that if there were behind two doors, behind one was a tiger, and behind one was an evil spirit, if it were really the case, that were the case, you are actually much more fearful when it comes down to it, to the evil spirit behind the door. And they had that sense that among them was not an evil spirit, but a spiritual power that was in their midst. But there may have been a spiritual warfare going on, because as Jesus was making his way across, it had become then at that point a chance for the demoniac to recognize in the great power of that demon congregation that was inside of him, that here comes whatever this is, the Son of God, the Son of Man, whatever this is, I know he's coming for me, and he's coming my way. And you could just imagine as he heard the oars perhaps, making the splashes. You can hear all the way across here. As he stood up on the cliff, looking at the boat coming closer and closer, and then perhaps conjuring up the wind and the waves. And why do I think it is that he did that? Because Jesus had just rebuked the evil spirit that had caused the fever in Peter's mother-in-law. Had just done that on the other side before getting in. And that word for rebuke, epitomao, is the exact same word that he uses when he stands up and he epitomaos the wind and the waves. And it seems to be a pointer that he was attacking the very same thing that he was attacking back there in Capernaum. That it was perhaps an evil effort to be able to swamp him and perhaps send him to the depths. The Jews did not like the sea. There was a real sense that this was the depths, the dark place, and that this would be the way to do away with perhaps the Son of God. But imagine the demoniac's chagrin when all of a sudden Jesus stands up and rebukes, and everything goes eerily calm, like Scooby-Doo calm. And there's just that little mist over everything. It's the middle of the night, and imagine the demoniac having to anticipate Jesus's arrival. And now, in the middle of there's no sail. Everything is a great calm. Just hearing, and with that, the approaching of the boat, little by little, and the demoniac just waiting of what the showdown is going to be. Wow. And then as Jesus steps on the shore, it seems as though he's kind of trying to bring about one last moment of intimidation, running at him, screaming at him, running down to the cliff. And then Jesus, I love this moment of Jesus, right? Jesus kind of just, in my mind, has a superhero pose, is just standing there. And as he just stands there, the demoniac, in all of his bluster, all he can do is just fall, crushed to the ground at his feet, and then just simply beg him, please, please don't do what you're going to do to us. It's a powerful moment for us to behold the spiritual power of Jesus, but there's also something rather redemptive in that event, because those events of a storm, confused sailors, a guest on the sailor's boat that happens to be sleeping, does that sound like anything else? Jonah. Right. And I think there's an intentional connection to Jonah, that just as in the Jonah story, you did have a great storm, you had a passenger, you had him asleep, you had the sailors who were professional, but yet they were besides themselves. They didn't know what to do about it. They're asking one another what it is that we should do. And even in their confusion, look at the way that they even address Jesus. Don't you care? All of this, indicating that confusion. But the one thing that we don't have is what? We don't have the passenger being thrown overboard into the deep. Not yet. But ultimately, why is it that Jesus can do all of this? Because ultimately, he will do exactly that for us. He will bear all that needs to be borne, and he will go to the depths for us to make that story much more complete than the sadness of the Jonah story. This is the glory of Jesus being the ultimate prophet, the ultimate deliverer for us. It's why he can redeem the man from the demoniac. It's why he can rebuke the wind and the waves. It's why he can do all that he does, because he is going to go to the depths and reverse everything that was brought about in the fall by all it is that he's going to bear for us. Amen.